Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes thing. So I want to bring this up. We have a little clip. And then, what's going on here in Idaho. The tweet that I wrote says, in his recent interview, Tucker Carlson talked about the genocidal calls to excise people like Tucker and Nick Fuentes from the conservative movement. And I'm here to tell you that those voices are here operating in Idaho. Imagine a Republican Party that expels anyone who doesn't support Israel as a matter of bylaw. So here's the clip.
I think it's reality to say that guilt is not inherited. Blood guilt is bad. One of the reasons that I'm mad about Gaza is because the Israeli position is everyone who lives in Gaza is a terrorist because of how they were born, including the women and the children. That's not a Western view. That's an Eastern view. That's a non-Christian, that's totally incompatible with Christianity and Western civilization. They say, oh, we're the defenders of Western civilization. Not with that attitude. You're not. Collective punishment is the enemy of Western civilization.
Yeah.
And so I hate that attitude. It's genocidal. The current claims that I'm a cancer, from Ben Shapiro or whatever, we need to be excised from the body of conservatism is a genocidal position that it basically encourages violence, as they well know. The whole thing I hate.
And so this is important because I have in the post a follow-up. A guy named Mark Eaton, he is a district chair within the Republican Party, complaining about anti-Semitism. I quoted the Bible, 1 Thessalonians 2:14 through 16. And so he responds that I need to get away from my worship of Pope Pius X. He was a man, blah, blah, blah. And the time is coming soon. I believe we will be alive to witness it, blah, blah, blah. And he says, it's obvious from your comments that you are indeed an anti-Semite, not fit to be in the Republican Party. Your days as such may be limited. There are some serious changes being considered that may allow the party to expel folks like you.
The irony of this is that we do need to summarily excise people from our movement, and it's anybody that in any way, shape, or form supports Israel.
Yeah.
And so I'm fine with Ben Shapiro's position in principle, but it needs to be turned on him.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to put support of a foreign nation as the most important litmus test for whether or not you should hold elected office, you need to shut the fuck up and go away. Because this is America, and we care about what happens in America, and we should not be moving people out of the party or telling people that they can't run for office because they disagree with your goofy, eschatological, dispensationalist views. I'm sorry.
Can you pull up
this
clip?
Fucked up. Yeah. So anyway, we're talking about Tucker and Nick now.
Okay, so this interview, I thought it was incredibly boring, just incredibly boring. However, it is blowing up the internet. I think it has 2.5 million views just as of, or maybe 3 million views if you want to check. They didn't talk about anything that was groundbreaking. No real revelations were made, except Nick did the thing of like, but I have a Jewish friend and my producer's Jew. I was like, dude, shut up. They talked about racism. I thought that part was a little bit interesting. Let's watch this clip on Christian Zionism as a mind virus. This was somewhat interesting.
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I can just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because like what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian. That's why. So I don't like. Why not? Like, I'm pissed at the neocons. Very pissed. I've said that a million times. I've been mad since December of 2003 when I went to Iraq. And so like I went and asked straightforward questions to Ted Cruz because that seemed like there's a sitting senator who's like serving for Israel by his own description. He seemed like a worthy target. I'm not going after MTG, who's like the most sincere like, why not go after Ted Cruz? I don't understand.
I'm so tired of all these talking points. Did anybody else find this interview vexing and didn't enlighten any ideas that I hadn't heard before? However, I think the real story, I don't even want to watch the remainder of these clips because who cares? Let's pull up the Dinesh tweet. The real story here is the response to Tucker platforming Nick. So Dinesh D'Souza, in a viral tweet, said, "I'm posting 2 text exchanges with Charlie Kirk where he calls Nick Fuentes vermin and insists even my debating him and defeating his arguments nevertheless amplifies him. One can only imagine what Charlie would say about Tucker's butt-licking interview with Fuentes." Can you read these? I can't. I'm so blind.
What do you mean? This was a massive mistake that you did this? He's vermin and you just gave him one of the biggest boosts of his career.
Right. I mean, why would Dinesh do this? And I think that the story here is the reaction. People are like, oh, he platformed Nick Fuentes. And so my broader question about this interview, because people are saying, well, the Overton window is shifting. I think maybe we're too focused on the Overton window, although I do talk about it all the time. Can you pull up this Nick mainstream tweet? Is this Nick moving towards the center, or is the center moving towards Nick? I believe that it is probably a combination of both. Okay. Nick Fuentes' appearance on Tucker's show receives 99% approval rate from his audience. The degree to which Nick Fuentes has entered the mainstream is unprecedented. Yes. But I do think his positions are considerably more moderate than they were a few years ago.
No, they're not.
I think they were. I think that he's he's engaging in some of this big tent conservatism and universalism that I'm not super happy with, although I'm on the fence. I do appreciate that some of these viewpoints are getting normalized. I don't like to hear the attitude that, like, this is Israel, that we should reform from within. Like, I want him to talk about, I wanted him to be on Tucker talking about Jews.
He was.
Not in the same way that he does on his own show.
He was.
I think he tempered his talking points.
Yeah, he's reading the room and talking to the boomers. He's speaking to the boomers.
Yeah, but I don't care about converting the boomers. They're going to die.
No, they're not dying soon enough. What are you talking about? No. Like, if we want to have change in the next, right now, then we're going to have to convert people. We're going to have to change the minds of boomers, of people in power, of Trump himself,
so
the administration.
You believe this was a very meaningful cultural moment that represented a massive shift in the Overton window and the perspective of normal people?
No, what I'm saying is that Tucker's audience has been gatekept from watching Nick because Tucker's been going around saying, you're gay, you're a Fed, you're this, you're that. So they've never experienced Nick. They've never listened to him before. And now that Tucker is there to hold their hand with them while they listen to 2 hours of Nick Fuentes talking, they are now exposed to Nick's ideas for the first time.
That's true.
For the first time. So, where we are doesn't matter, frankly. Like, we've been in this for 10 years, 15 years, however long. There are people out there today that don't know what we knew 9 years ago.
Duh.
They need to be brought up to speed, and this does that.
Cameron, what do you think?
Okay, so Dave is correct in the sense that, look, Fuentes is growing up. Okay, he's maturing as a young man. A lot of his earlier content, it didn't express a lot of ideas. It was a lot of very reactionary, emotional garbage. But that resonated with his audience. And he did talk about issues that matter, issues like race and Zionism, things of that nature that have been taboo for a long time. What's happening is he's evolving, and that's what he should do. And that does lend itself to mainstreaming a lot of these ideas. I think that's true. However, look, there are much bigger things that are going on. This interview is important. It's not decisive. The boomers and the rest of these folks, they are reacting. What we think, and this is a point of view I've tried to convey to both of you, but you don't believe me, and I understand I understand that. But it's the edge that matters. It's not the mainstream. The mainstream is irrelevant. The Overton window does not matter, right? It is a prism through which you look at normies, and normies, for the most part, are irrelevant. They don't matter. Now, you might say, yeah, but they vote. Okay, and what good has voting done for 50 years? It hasn't done a damn thing. It's irrelevant, okay? It's theater. It's just a theatrical exercise. We are entering into a very different landscape that's going to, I think, show a lot of fireworks, right? You're going to see the sky light up because we're facing an emergency, right? We've got a racial mess that's unfolding in every major city across the country. We have federal agencies that can't get control of millions of illegal immigrants across this country, despite the fact that the president was elected by a majority of the population to do exactly that. What does that tell you about where we are and the nature of electoral politics? Those things are much bigger than a lot of these interviews. And it's our ideas that address exactly what's happening at the street level, as I keep saying. In addition to that, what's good about the interview between Tucker and Fuentes, what's good about what's happened on the internet, is that the diagnosis of what's wrong with the United States is getting closer to the truth, right? We're hovering right over it, when for a long time, for decades, these issues were endlessly buried in a lot of ridiculous language that danced around the truth, right? It wasn't crime, it was poverty, it wasn't race, it was prejudice, right? All of these things. And that's vaporizing. And it's vaporizing because of our ideas in part, but really it's vaporizing because the United States is hurting. And that's what we're going to talk about later on this show. But the final point I'll make about this is that Tucker Carlson, who I think is a product of this sort of, I don't know, the post-Reagan mainstream Republican nervous system. All right, that's really where his frame of mind is, and he's, to his credit, he's broken away from that, and that's why he entertained Fuentes. But he, like everybody else, seems to be very confused about why people on Capitol Hill do what they do. It's just not about a mind virus. All right, Ted Cruz doesn't believe in a damn thing. These people kiss the ring. They want power. So they go to people who have power, and it is bestowed upon them. And what's required to do that, right? What's required to become a U.S. Senator or to become president of the United States is that you must be a pro-Zionist. That is a precondition. It is non-negotiable, which is why our country is a mess. That's what this is about. It is not an ideology. The minute that that changes, the minute that the power structure begins to wobble, all of these people will find Jesus in a heartbeat. And that includes all the baby boomers, by the way. Final point I'll make is that the baby boomers aren't going to do shit until their dividend payments are cut in half, until they lose their retirement. That is going to happen. That's imminent. And when that happens, all of a sudden, their views will become our views. Our job, my job on this platform, is to take the diagnosis and give you a prognosis, to tell you where we are going, not just talk about the past. And if we understand the past, then we can sort of direct our way forward, which tells us that, yes, we have to meet in real life. We have to create new organizational structures, and they have to more or less be aligned with the ethno-nationalist movement that we've described. And that's going to happen. Network effects, right, outside of politics are the decisive variable that's going to save this country, not voting for a Republican who has an AIPAC handler, okay? That party is finished. Those politics are over.
Yeah, no, I agree. But at the same time, you know, we're seeing tweets and clips like this. Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson discuss how organized Jewry subverts Americanism. Nick Fuentes, quote, you cannot actually divorce Israel and the neocons from Jewishness, unquote. Yep. This has never been told in the mainstream to Tucker's audience, to Conservative Inc., to the people that have been living on the plantation for the past decade. They are hearing this for the first time. This is huge. And anybody that's coming out and saying that Nick Fuentes is compromising, that he's disavowing his former beliefs, are just fucking A-logs. They don't get it. They don't see we've got a gap that we need to bridge. And, you know, again, like there might be some collapse situation that would accelerate all of this. But, you know, let's pretend for a moment that everything's going to be fine and they're just going to keep slapping Band-Aids on the financial system. We've got to bridge the gap. And that means coming from our side and getting political power, getting people involved, educating the leaders of the Republican Party at your local level, at your state level on this particular issue and how this is working. And of course, everybody's starting to see it. They've all seen the Ted Cruz interview now. Everybody's seen that. They've seen how he freaks out.
As always, I'm blinded by my female emotion, and I am highly resentful for those that have not sacrificed anything to talk about the Jews and to be early adopters of the Jewish thing, because it was it affected our lives, our personal lives, so much. And so to see people come in now and be like, "Ooh, I had no idea," I'm like, well, you're retarded.
I am reminded of the parable of the guy, right? There was he owned a vineyard, right? And damn, I can't remember what the name of the parable was, but it was the man who owned the vineyard, and he went out at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and he hired somebody and said, "I'll pay you a penny to come and work my vineyard." And then at noon, he went out and said, "Hey, I'll pay you a penny to work the vineyard." And then he went out again at 6 p.m. and said, "Hey, come, I'll pay you a penny to work my vineyard." And then at the end of the day, everybody had agreed, we'll all get paid a penny. And then the people that were there early in the morning were pissed that they got paid less than the people that came later. And the man who owned the vineyard reminded them, didn't you accept this? Didn't you agree that you would work for this earlier?
I'm with the vineyard workers on this one.
No. It's you've got to, that parable is very applicable, I think, to this situation. We shouldn't be resentful or pissed at people that are just coming around now, because without Nick, without people like you and me and Vince and all of the people that came before that got canceled, without them, we wouldn't have this moment that we're having now. And that's why we need to keep pushing harder and harder and not hold it against the people that are latecomers,
Fine.
Yeah, that's true, Dave. But there's also something that's happened over the last couple of years. A lot of people have been killed, innocent people.
True.
Right? They've been victimized, and that's been on the television screen. And nobody in Congress gives a shit about it. Nobody in the West calls it a genocide, right? Outside of a very small minority. There's no accountability, and American equipment continues to flow, right? American diplomatic support is unquestioned. And yeah, people have noticed, and they've asked questions about it. So you're right. Again, what's happened on the edge, what happens on the edges in all of these political battles is what's decisive. And I absolutely think that you guys in particular have been at the vanguard of this for 10 years, and it has made a big difference. Remember, you helped get Trump elected in 2016, which opened a lot of doors, right? All of a sudden, then you could start to talk about immigration and race in ways that were unheard of just 5 months, 6 months before Donald Trump started to run, right? There's no question about that. But let's not forget what has really moved the needle on Zionism, and that is Zionism. The point of the system is what it does. And Zionism has butchered these people, it's killed them, and now it's threatening to embroil the United States in a major regional war, if not a global war, to do its bidding. And there's no sense of remorse. There's no contrition. I think it was Alistair Crook who was on Napolitano the other day, and he was asked by Napolitano, is there any sense of the human cost of Netanyahu's war over the last couple of years? And he said, absolutely not. The view in Israel is that they are victims, no matter what. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are.
Kind of like these Christian Zionists.
That mentality. It is the mind virus of Zionism itself that has awakened people, because you can't unsee children being blown away from the sky. You can't unsee that. And that's what people, whether they're baby boomers or they're Gen Z or what have you, that's what they have seen. That has opened the door. And now what we have done is explained it, right? We have contextualized it, and we have rationalized why the United States has been subverted and poisoned by it, which is our job. But people had to be ready for that diagnosis.
Right. And part of that is this collision with economic problems that we're having and that we're about to see, especially with the EBT thing. Maybe we should play this clip. Can you go all the way down to the outline?
Yeah,
of the end of
I
the
just
outline?
want to post this. It was I was thinking of Matthew 20.
The parable of the vineyard.
Right. And he says, so the last will be first, and the first last. Many are called, but few are chosen. And so we were chosen to be the first, and that's okay.
Yeah. Is
anyway. Yeah, it is.
Because this has not been worth it.
This has absolutely.
Send your super
been
chats to
worth it.
backlash.net.
Tell us if it, please. And by the way, it's our 88th episode.
It is.
This is a big episode.
Yeah.
We've got to get some $88 super chats.
Or $14 super chats.
Or $14.88, however you want to cut the cake.
Yeah.
Let them eat cake, right?
Yes, and I saw this in the live chat. Before this EBT segment, I was going to say, let them eat chicken wangs.
Let them eat wangs.
Let
Get
them
some
eat
of that
wangs.
Houston hot chicken.
Yeah,
Dave's hot chicken or whatever.
Yep.
Man, I can't stand fried chicken.
What is wrong with you?